This is a demonstration on how to make a color wheel. You begin by drawing a light circle. On that circle, you're going to draw a line that bisects it in half vertically, and then you're going to draw a line that bisects it in half horizontally. Now we're going to think of this circle as a clock, and at the top where there's a 12, we're going to add a small circle. And then we're going to do that at the end of each of these lines. So 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. And then we're also going to add circles where the other numbers would be on a clock. So we would have a 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So a color wheel has 12 colors on it. We're going to begin by labeling the primary colors. And the primary colors are the 3 colors that you need to start with. Up at the top, we're going to label it yellow. Then we're going to skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and label the circle that would be 4 o'clock. We're going to label that red. We're going to skip 3 more, 1, 2, 3, and then the circle which would be 8 o'clock, we're going to label that blue. So these are the 3 primary colors. You can use these colors to mix and make other colors. However, you can never mix to make these actual colors. So if you wanted to paint with red, you would make sure you had actually purchased red paint. You need to have yellow, blue, and red actually in the bottle in order to be able to use them, because you cannot mix and make them from the other colors. Okay, just to point out that these are the primaries, we're going to draw a triangle connecting them together. So from the yellow to the blue, draw a straight line. From the blue to the red, draw a straight line. And then from the red up to the yellow, draw a straight line. So that triangle just points out that those are our 3 primary colors, and that's how we begin our color wheel. Okay, so the first one we're going to paint with is yellow. So go ahead and get some yellow paint on your brush and paint in that first circle that you have labeled with the yellow. Tempera paint is pretty thin, so there's a good chance that you will have to actually do more than 1 coat if you would like to cover up your pencil lines. Okay, now I'm going to wash my brush, making sure I get all of the yellow paint out of my brush. And then I'm going to blot it dry on my paper towel to make sure that I don't add water to my paint, because that'll make it even thinner. I'm going to go ahead and paint the red circle. After I'm done painting that red circle, again, I'll wash my brush, actually touching the brush to the bottom of the cup, making sure I get all the paint out of the bristles, and then blot it dry again. And finally, I will paint the blue. Okay, so I have my primary colors in place. This will help guide me to make all of the other colors that are going to appear on the color wheel here. So one more time, I'm going to wash my brush really well and blot it dry. All right, when red and yellow mix together, these 2 primary colors become a secondary color, which would be orange. So red and yellow mixed together makes orange. We're going to make that now But keep in mind, yellow is a very weak color. It is easily overpowered by stronger colors like red and blue. So when we mix to make orange, we need to actually use more yellow to keep it from being overpowered by the red. I'm going to scoop some yellow on my palette and move it to a new spot. Then I'm going to take a small amount of red, much less than I did of the yellow, and I'm going to mix that in with my yellow paint on that new section of my palette. And you shall see that when you mix those two colors together, you'll get a very nice orange. So in the circle that would be for 2 o'clock, you can go ahead and paint that with orange. Okay, so red and yellow are primary colors. You mix those together and you get a secondary color, orange. If you mix a secondary color with a primary color, you get something called a tertiary color. So now I'm going to go ahead and mix yellow and orange together, and that's going to get me a color called yellow-orange, and that is a tertiary color. So on my palette, I already have a little bit of orange in my brush. I'm just going to make sure I don't have too much. I'm wiping off a little bit of the extra. And then I'm going to pick up some yellow. And I know that yellow is a very weak color, so I'm going to use the little bit of orange that's already in my brush and mix it with some yellow. And it looks like I might need a little more yellow. When I've made that yellow-orange, I'm going to go ahead and add it to the circle. That would be 1 o'clock on a clock. So I now have yellow, yellow-orange, orange, and then after that, I'm going to put here the color that I would get when I would mix orange and red together. Again, red is a primary color, orange is a secondary color. Those two mix together, and in this circle, they'll make red-orange. When you're saying the names of the tertiary colors, you always want to make sure that you say the primary color first and then the secondary color. So I'm going to call this color red-orange. I'm never going to call it orange-red. All right, so I already have orange on my palette. I know that red is a very strong color, so I'm just going to go ahead and take a little bit of red and mix it in with some of the orange that I have on my palette. When I have that red-orange color that I would like, I'm going to go ahead and add it to my color wheel. Sometimes your paint gets a little thin, and you have two options. You could either mix and continue making more of that paint color so that you actually can paint with it, or if you're doing something like this simple color wheel where it doesn't matter too much, you could water it down just slightly. I wouldn't recommend this for a painting that you really are trying hard on. But that just helps make it so that I can spread it a little bit further. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wash my brush now. And dry it. All right, I am ready to move on to this section, which my two primaries are red and blue here. So when I mix red and blue together, I'm going to get a secondary color here, which will be purple, also known as violet. So on my palette, I'm going to take some blue and move it to a new location. I'm going to take some red and move it to a new location, that same spot, and mix those two together. Now red and blue are both pretty strong colors, so you can do equal parts of them. You don't have to do what you did with yellow where you had to use a lot more of it. Now this makes a very, very dark purple. So I can spread it, try to spread it kind of thin and use the white of the paper to help show through a little bit to show that that is indeed purple and not just black. Okay, so I have red and blue mixed together to make violet. I'm going to go on to tertiary colors. Red and violet mixed together to make red violet. So I'll take just a little bit of extra red, and I do have some violet in my brush, so just on one spot on my palette I'm mixing the violet that's already in my brush with a little bit of new red. I've got a red violet. I'm going to go ahead and paint that in this sphere here, or this circle. And again, my brush is kind of drying out, so I'll just use a tiny bit of water to help spread it further. Okay, so I have my red violet in place. Now the tertiary color that I get when I mix blue, primary color, with violet, secondary color, I get blue violet. So I'm going to go over to my palette. I'm going to move a little bit of blue and mix that in with some of the purple that I've already made, or the violet that I've already made. And again, because blue and red are such strong colors, this is going to look very dark on your color wheel. Okay, I'm ready for my last zone here, which would be the colors that I get when I mix yellow and blue together. So I'm going to wash my brush one last time. Dry it. Okay, I'm mixing with yellow again, which means I need to use more of it. I'm going to take some of my yellow paint and I'm going to move it to a new spot on my palette. And the reason I do that is because I don't want to totally contaminate all of that yellow. I'd like to keep it as a bright, pure yellow for when I want to do further mixing. Okay, now I'm going to take a very small amount of blue and I'm going to mix that in with my yellow. When those two colors mix together, I get the secondary color green. I go ahead and paint that green in the circle. That would be 10 o'clock on my color wheel. All right, I have my green in place. That is a secondary color. You mix yellow and blue together to get green. And now we're going to paint those tertiary colors. So when green and yellow mix together, you get the tertiary color yellow-green. And again, remember that yellow is such a weak color, so I'm going to just wipe off a little bit of the extra green out of my paintbrush. And now I'm just going to take a touch of yellow, move it to a new spot on my palette, and hopefully that little bit of green that's still in my brush is going to help mix and make this a yellow-green. I'm going to go ahead and paint this in the yellow-green circle on my color wheel. I'm thinking that's not quite looking yellow enough, so I'm just going to add a little bit of yellow on top and blend that right in to get it a little bit brighter. Okay, last circle on my color wheel is going to be what I get when I mix the primary color blue with the secondary color green. It's going to be blue-green. So I've got a good amount of green on my palette. I'm just going to take a touch of blue, keeping in mind that it's a very strong, bold color. I don't need much of it. And I'm going to mix that in with my green. Okay, when those two mix, I get blue-green. Actually, that is not quite blue enough. I'm going to add a little bit more to it. Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay, I'm finished painting all the colors on my color wheel. I just need to finish labeling them now. So I'm going to wash my brush. Make sure I blot it dry. And then just set that off to the side and grab my marker. Okay, so yellow and red mixed together, they make orange. Yellow and orange mixed together, they make yellow-orange. Orange and red mixed together, you get red-orange. Red and violet mixed together, you get red-violet. Blue and red mixed together, and you get violet. Blue and violet mixed together, and you get blue-violet. Blue and yellow mixed together, you get green. Blue and green mixed together, and you get blue-green. And then green and yellow mixed together, and you get yellow-green. Okay, and that is just a really basic color wheel. While this color wheel is basic, it is the foundation for understanding how to mix colors together. If you know how to make a color wheel, you are well on your way to mixing all the colors you could ever need.